They say the mind is a battlefield, but they're wrong. The battlefield is too small a word for what lives inside your head. This isn't a fight. It's a war between the version of you that was shaped by fear, comfort, and excuses, and the version of you that was forged in clarity, courage, and relentless fire. Every second, every breath, every moment of hesitation is another vote for weakness or strength. And the question that will define the rest of your life is this: will you master your mind or be mastered by it? You want to be unstoppable? Then you must walk straight into the furnace of your limitations. Because the truth is, no one is born unstoppable. They become that way when they stop letting their mind control them and start training it to obey. You think Edison became Edison because he waited for the world to hand him a clean plan? He went through 10,000 failures, 10,000 ways it didn't work, but he didn't break. Why? Because his mind was trained to see failure as feedback, not as evidence that he should quit. You want success? You want dominance? Then you must train your mind to respond differently than most people ever will. While others run at the first sign of discomfort, you move forward like pain is your compass. While others get lost in their thoughts, you command them like a general at war. Because here's the truth: the most powerful thing in your life is not your talent, not your background, not even your circumstances. It's how you think. The average person is a prisoner of their own mind. They're chained to fear, to worry, to regret. They wake up thinking about problems. They go to sleep replaying failures. And then they wonder why they can't win. But you weren't born for average. You weren't built for mediocrity. You were made for mastery. And mastery begins when you take ownership of your inner world like your life depends on it. Because it does. Let me make this as clear as possible. Your external results, your money, your success, your body, your relationships, all of it is the echo of your internal discipline, not your potential, not your dreams, your discipline. Because a mind left untrained becomes your enemy, but a mind mastered becomes your empire. Think about that. There are people right now with half your resources, half your education, and half your time, building empires, creating legacies, living in freedom. Why? Because they chose to control their thoughts instead of letting their thoughts control them. They trained their mind to focus while others scrolled. They trained their mind to persist while others paused. They trained their mind to see opportunity in chaos while others saw only excuses. This is not about being perfect. This is about being relentlessly intentional. You want to be unstoppable? Then you need to treat your mind like it's a weapon. Because it is. And just like any weapon, it will destroy you if you don't learn how to wield it. Let me ask you something. What are you feeding your mind every day? What are you repeating to yourself in silence when no one's around to hear it? Are your thoughts building you or breaking you? Are they making you sharper or are they keeping you stuck? Because every thought is a seed, and your life is just the harvest of the ones you watered. If you wake up telling yourself, "I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed, this is too hard," then your life will start obeying those commands. But when you rise with clarity, with direction, with vision so sharp it cuts through resistance, you become a force. The man or woman who controls their mind controls their destiny. Do you understand how dangerous you become when your mind no longer negotiates with fear? Do you understand how powerful you are when you can sit in silence and command your thoughts like a king does his kingdom? Most people can't sit in silence for 5 minutes without reaching for a distraction, because when they're alone with their thoughts, they're in enemy territory. But not you. You were born to master this. You were born to lead your mind, not be led by it. You want to be rich? You want to be fulfilled? You want to be respected. Then start with this. Train your mind to obey your vision, not your emotions. Your emotions lie. They scream for comfort. They beg for the familiar. But your vision is sacred. It's the blueprint to everything you could become. And every day that you align your mind with that vision, you gain momentum. And momentum is what separates the ones who dabble from the ones who dominate. Because once you gain momentum, you don't stop to ask permission. You don't wait for motivation. You don't negotiate with hesitation. You build. You push. You repeat. You refine. And soon you begin to realize you've crossed the invisible line. The line where most people quit and you kept going. The line where others panicked and you stayed calm. The line where average ends and greatness begins. See, most people don't fail because they lacked opportunity. They failed because they lacked mental stamina. They got tired of showing up, tired of being disciplined, tired of thinking powerfully. But that's where champions are born. In the fatigue, in the trenches, in the nights no one else sees. When the body wants to shut down, but the mind says, not yet, we're not done. This is mastery, not a weekend seminar, not a fleeting motivational high, but a daily decision to be at war with your lesser self. And you don't win that war once. You win it again, and again, and again. Until the weak voice inside you gets tired of losing. Until that voice becomes so small, so powerless, so irrelevant, that you don't even hear it anymore. Only then will you understand the real truth. There is no external enemy more dangerous than your untrained mind. Let that sink in. You could take away a person's money, their status, even their connections. But if they've mastered their mind, they'll rebuild it all, and more. Because they know where the real power lives. The real war isn't on the outside. It's inside your thoughts. Inside the quiet moments where no one is watching. Inside the habits of your mind that shape every action you take. Let me show you how the unstoppable think. They don't react. They respond. They don't chase approval. They lead with clarity. They don't get addicted to comfort. They thrive in discomfort. Because they've trained for it. Just like a warrior trains for battle. The unstoppable train their minds for chaos. They expect setbacks. They anticipate struggle. And when it comes, they don't break. They rise. Because they made a decision long ago. I will master what happens inside me, so nothing that happens outside me can destroy me. And here's the brutal truth most people avoid. If your mind is undisciplined, you'll sabotage every opportunity that comes your way. Success doesn't just test your skill. It tests your mental integrity. Can you stay focused when the rewards aren't instant? Can you keep going when the applause fades? Can you believe in your mission when the world doubts it? Because if you can't, you're not ready for the next level. You're still living in mental poverty. And mental poverty is worse than being broke, because it doesn't just steal your money. It steals your potential. But here's the good news. Your mind is trainable. It can be shaped, refined, sharpened. It can go from a scattered storm of thoughts to a laser beam of focus. It can go from being your greatest liability to your greatest weapon. But only if you're willing to do what others won't. Are you? Are you willing to wake up and fight for control? Are you willing to face the mirror with radical honesty and say, my thoughts are mine to control, not the other way around? Because that's the turning point. That's when your life begins to align with something bigger than circumstances. It aligns with purpose. Once your mind is aligned, nothing can shake you. Not fear, not rejection, not failure, not even time. Because a person who has mastered their mind has mastered their direction. and a human with direction can move through hell with a smile on their face. That's what you were born for. Not just to drift, not just to exist, but to lead. And it starts with what you allow to live inside your head. Because your mind is always working. The only question is it working for you or against you? Let me tell you something that history proves again and again. Every empire, every invention, every revolution started first, in someone's mind. Walt Disney saw an entire world of imagination in his mind before he ever laid one brick in Florida. Henry Ford saw an affordable car for every household before the world thought it was possible. Lincoln saw a nation united while it was still bleeding from the inside out. They all had one thing in common. They owned their inner world before they tried to shape the outer one. And so must you. You want to change your world? Then change the one behind your eyes first. Train your mind to focus on what you want, not what you fear. Train it to see what's possible, not what's missing. Train it to choose growth over comfort. And once that becomes your default, you don't chase success, you attract it. Because the world bends to the mind that refuses to bow. You become magnetic, you become grounded, you become unstoppable. And when you become unstoppable, you stop asking for directions from people who've never left the shore. You stop explaining your fire to those still afraid of the flame. You stop watering yourself down just to fit in, because you're not here to fit. You're here to expand. Understand this. Mastery of the mind isn't some mystical state only available to monks and sages. It's available to you if you're willing to do what average minds avoid. Sit in silence when the world screams for noise. Delay gratification when your flesh begs for comfort. Show up and execute when your emotions say, "Not today." That's real power. And most people never find it, because they never sit long enough with their own thoughts to uncover what's buried underneath. But you're not most people. You're here because something inside you refuses to settle, refuses to live with the regret of untapped potential, refuses to let fear dictate the terms of your future. So here's the uncomfortable truth. You don't rise by chance. You rise by choice. You decide what thoughts are allowed to stay. You decide what beliefs take root. You decide what stories you no longer subscribe to. Because your mind is fertile soil. Whatever you plant will grow. So if you're planting doubt, don't act surprised when your life is covered in weeds. But if you're planting vision, discipline, resilience, don't be shocked when your future blooms with power and prosperity. This isn't about positive thinking. This is about dominant thinking. This is about building a mind so focused, so convicted, so intentional, that nothing slips in unnoticed. No lie gets to live rent-free in your mental space. You evict it. You replace it. You train your mind to obey your vision. Because a trained mind doesn't entertain mediocrity. It doesn't flinch in adversity. It doesn't bow to resistance. It commands the day. It directs energy with precision. It filters every thought through the lens of mission. This is the way of the 1%, not just financially, but mentally. Because wealth without mental mastery is a house built on sand. One storm, and it's gone. But a mind anchored in purpose? That's indestructible. So if you're tired of restarting, tired of doubting, tired of letting your moods make your decisions, then today is the line in the sand. No more feeding the thoughts that drain you. No more flirting with distractions that rob your focus. No more listening to the internal saboteur dressed as your comfort zone. From this moment forward, you lead your mind. It doesn't lead you, and when it rebels, as it will, you bring it back. When it wanders, you refocus. When it gets lazy, you apply pressure. Because discipline isn't just about habits, it's about identity. You are the kind of person who finishes what they start. You are the kind of person who moves even when it's hard. You are the kind of person who refuses to bow to temporary feelings. Why? Because you've chosen mastery. And mastery doesn't negotiate with weakness. Let me tell you something no one else will. Your mind has a memory, not just of facts, but of patterns. Every time you choose to push when it's uncomfortable. Every time you show up when no one's clapping. Every time you conquer a fear instead of running from it, your mind takes note. It remembers. And little by little, it begins to shift. From fragile to fierce. From scattered to sharp. From reactive to relentless. But it requires that you stay in the fire long enough to forge something real. Not just dabble. Not just dip your toes in the idea of greatness. But to immerse yourself in the discipline of becoming. This is where most people quit. Because mastery isn't glamorous. It's not loud. It's not easy. It's not instant. But it is worth it. Because on the other side of that struggle is freedom. Not just freedom of time or money, but freedom of thought. Freedom from fear. Freedom from the opinions of others. Freedom from the emotional chaos that keeps people stuck in the same loop for decades. And that kind of freedom? It's rare. It's earned. It's forged in the hidden places, when no one's watching and everything inside you screams to quit. But you don't. You breathe. You focus. You master the moment. Because that's what unstoppable people do. They don't wait for life to give them a reason. They give life a command. They tell their bodies when to wake. They tell their minds where to focus. They tell their energy where to go. Because they understand. The quality of your mind will determine the quality of your life. So stop trying to change your life from the outside in. Start mastering it from the inside out. And you will become the kind of force this world can't ignore. Not because you shouted louder, but because your inner world became unshakable. Now go, train that mind, discipline that thought, align your vision, and take what's already yours. The ones who make history don't do it because they're lucky. They do it because they make inner war their training ground. Because they know, before you conquer the world, you must conquer yourself. They don't chase discipline. They become it. They don't wait for confidence. They build it. They don't seek motivation. They create momentum through movement. Listen to me. This world will hand you every excuse to stay ordinary. It will whisper seductive lies into your ear. Take it easy. You've done enough. You can always start tomorrow. But if you listen, if you entertain those lies long enough, they become your truth. And nothing, I mean nothing, is more dangerous than a lie you've convinced yourself is true. You want to become unstoppable? Then stop negotiating with the lowest version of yourself. You don't owe that version anything. Not one more wasted hour. Not one more excuse. Not one more day of hiding your greatness behind laziness or fear. You owe everything to the version of you that's waiting on the other side of resistance. Because resistance is the gatekeeper. It's not there to stop you. It's there to reveal you. And the more it pushes, the more it's testing to see how badly you want it. So push back. Push with your thoughts. Push with your routines. Push with the kind of inner clarity that sets mountains on fire. Because clarity is the beginning of power. Without it, you're drifting. But with it, you move with direction, with certainty, with the kind of purpose that can split oceans. Most people are chasing results without ever defining their why. They're chasing approval, applause, escape. But you are here to chase alignment. You are here to live in full ownership of your power. You are here to decide, this is what I want, this is who I am, and this is what I will build. No backup plan, no second guessing, No backpedaling when it gets uncomfortable. Because if your dream doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. If it doesn't stretch you, it will never grow you. And that's the point. To grow beyond the version of you that needed permission. To grow past the hesitation that kept you safe, but broke your spirit. To grow into someone whose mind is no longer a prison, but a weapon. A sharpened, calibrated force of clarity, courage, and conviction. This is not about pretending you don't feel fear. It's about mastering your response to it. It's about rewiring the signal from run to rise. Because fear is just the alarm clock for your courage. It's not your enemy. It's your cue. Your cue to speak, to move, to act. Especially when your mind says, wait. Do you think Edison didn't feel fear? Do you think Ford didn't hear the voice of doubt when every expert told him his idea was foolish? They all felt it, but they trained their minds to listen to a different voice. The voice of vision. The voice of faith. The voice that whispers, "This may not be easy, but it's yours. Now go take it. Because let me tell you something, and hear it well. The world is not waiting to give you anything. It's waiting to see who you've decided to become. And when you show up, not just with a dream, but with the mind of a warrior, you change the game. Because people will feel it. In your eyes, in your presence, in the way you move through rooms like you belong there. Because you do. But that doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. By daily, hourly, relentless design. You don't wait for confidence. You install it, brick by brick, through repetition, through rituals, through removing every thought that weakens you, and replacing it with one that strengthens your soul. You've got to speak to yourself like your destiny depends on it. Because it does. You can't master the world until you've mastered the mirror. And the mirror doesn't lie. It reflects your habits, your integrity, your discipline, your internal standard when no one else is watching. That's the real scoreboard. And when your mind learns to win in private, it becomes unstoppable in public. So if you want the world to respect you, start by respecting your own word. When you say, "I'll do it," do it. When you say, "I'm done with this," be done. When you say, "I'm committed," stay committed, long after the mood that made the decision has faded. Because this is what mental mastery looks like. It's not flashy, it's not sexy, it's not always visible, but it's felt, it's earned, and it builds the kind of character that can't be shaken, no matter how hard life hits. Because life will hit, but you won't fall. Because your foundation isn't in feelings, it's in principles, it's in identity, it's in the decision you made to never go back to who you used to be. So remind yourself, every day, every hour if needed, I am not my past, I am not my doubts, I am not my fears. I am the one who masters them all. This is the path, the way of the one who chooses mental mastery over mental misery. And once you choose it, fully, you don't need to scream it. Your life will say it for you. There is a moment in every great life, a moment where everything stands still, where silence replaces noise, where doubt grows loud, and yet a deeper voice emerges from within. That voice is not the voice of your upbringing. It's not the echo of society. It is the voice of your higher self, the voice that's been buried beneath years of fear, comparison, procrastination. And when you listen to that voice, truly listen, you stop asking for directions to places your soul already knows how to reach. Because the mind, when properly trained, becomes the most lethal compass ever built. It stops wandering. It stops chasing everything and mastering nothing. It begins to direct, to focus, to command. Most people drift through life like ships with broken sails, pulled by wind, tossed by storms, terrified by waves. But not you. Not anymore. Because when you master your mind, you realize something terrifying and beautiful. You were the storm all along. You were the force you kept waiting for. You were the fire you tried to borrow from others. You were the strength you hoped someone else would lend you. But now you've seen yourself. In the trenches, in the pain, in the early mornings and the late nights when no one clapped, but you showed up anyway. You've built something no one can see, but everyone can feel. It's in your walk. It's in your tone. It's in the energy that wraps around every word you speak. That's what mastery does. It makes your presence undeniable, because you no longer depend on circumstance. You generate power from within. Look at the world's greatest builders, the Carnegies, the Rockefellers, the Oprahs, the Disneys, the Edisons. They weren't handed blueprints. They became the architects of invisible empires. They lived in the mind long before they lived in the mansion. Edison failed 10,000 times and still smiled. Why? Because his mind wasn't wired for defeat. He didn't see failure as a tombstone. He saw it as a stepping stone. That's the kind of wiring you need. So ask yourself, what story are you telling yourself daily? Because that story, the one you whisper before bed and repeat in the mirror, is either your cage or your catalyst. You say, I'm not ready? That's a story. You say, I'm too old, too late, too broken. That's a story. You say, maybe someday? That's the most poisonous story of all. Because someday becomes never for those who wait. And listen, you don't need more time. You need a stronger decision. That's the moment when mastery begins. Not when it's convenient, not when you're inspired, but when it's hard, when it hurts, when it's raining, and you still lace up your shoes and say, let's go. Discipline is not about punishment. It's about liberation. It's the act of freeing yourself from the tyranny of your lesser self. And once you taste that kind of freedom, the kind built through habits, through hardship, through high standards, you will never want to go back to the version of you that lived on autopilot. Because now you're awake. Now you see. And what you see, you can shape. What you focus on, you expand. What you practice, you become. Your mind is like a forge. It will mold whatever metal you place in it. Garbage in, garbage out. Greatness in, greatness explodes out. So, what are you feeding it? Are you consuming chaos, fear, gossip, distractions? Or are you feeding it books, silence, mentors, vision, challenge, repetition? Every input has a price, and your future is the receipt. So train like it matters. Think like it matters. Speak like it matters. Because it does. Someone out there is living the life you dream about. Not because they're better. Not because they're smarter. But because they decided to master the space between their ears. And if they can do it, so can you. But not with wishes. With work. The work of rewiring. The work of staying consistent when everything inside screams to stop. The work of holding a higher vision even when your environment screams, settle. Because the world will try to shrink you. It will hand you labels. It will say, be realistic. It will say, tone it down. It will say, who do you think you are? But mastery replies, I know who I am. And that knowing, that self-certainty, that unshakable mental stance is the beginning of unstoppable. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. It's not noise, it's nerve. Because once you master your mind, the world begins to respond differently. Doors open, opportunities flow, the right people appear. Not by magic, but because you no longer carry the energy of hesitation. You carry the energy of certainty. And in a world full of people who doubt, delay, and disappear, certainty is the ultimate currency. Certainty cuts through fog. It moves mountains without asking for permission. It doesn't beg. It doesn't wait. It walks forward, even when the path isn't clear. Because the mind that has been mastered doesn't need permission. It creates direction. There was a time when Henry Ford was mocked. He was told that no one needed a car. He was told that if he wanted faster transportation, he should just breed a better horse. But he didn't listen. Because his vision wasn't built for approval. It was built for impact. And when your mind is strong, vision becomes louder than opinions. You don't wake up looking for validation. You wake up with intention. You wake up knowing. You wake up building. And here's the truth. When you operate like that, people feel it. They can't explain it, but they feel it. They don't know why they respect you. They just do. Because you've mastered what 99% of people never will. Their internal world. Most people live as emotional reactors. Triggered by a comment. Derailed by a text message. Controlled by the mood of others. But not you. You become an emotional initiator. You set the tone. You decide the temperature of the room. You bring the calm in chaos, the fire in stagnation, the clarity in confusion. Because that's what happens when your inner world is stronger than your outer conditions. And no, this isn't magic. This isn't genetics. This is the result of consistent, deliberate internal work. You choose your thoughts. You choose your response. You choose your standards, your self-talk, your story, your state. And over time, those choices create a mental fortress so strong, nothing can shake you. When others see storms, you see strategy. When others fold, you focus. When others say, "It's over," you whisper, "It's just beginning." Because you've conditioned yourself to stay in the game, long after others have walked off the field. And listen, the field is never fair. The game isn't balanced. Some people get head starts. Some get better equipment. Some get cheered louder from the stands. But you've got something most never build, endurance. And endurance, backed by a trained mind, always wins in the end. It's not about how fast you start, it's about how strong you finish. And here's the thing. When your mind is locked on your vision, not your doubts, not your distractions, life bends. It doesn't bend easily, it doesn't bend overnight, but it bends to the will of a focused mind. Walt Disney was told his idea of a talking mouse was ridiculous. He was bankrupt, rejected hundreds of times, but he saw something that others couldn't. He believed before the world saw the castle. He walked through the fire, not because it was easy, but because his imagination was stronger than his insecurity. That's what mastering your mind does. It gives you the power to believe in things the world has not yet touched. It makes you see blueprints where others see ruins. It makes you speak life into empty rooms and breathe greatness into silence. And when people say you're obsessed, good. That means your focus has become visible. That means your intensity has become undeniable. That means your mental grip is working, because obsession, when directed by discipline and values, is not a weakness, it's a weapon. You want to build a life no one else has? You have to think like no one else thinks. You have to believe when logic says doubt. You have to act when emotion says quit. That's where mastery begins. In the moment you decide your feelings don't get to dictate your fate. Because feelings are fleeting, but your standard is permanent. Let that sink in. Your feelings will tell you, sleep in. Take it easy. You've done enough. Just this once. But your standard, the standard built through your values, your vision, your internal identity, will say, no, not today, we're not done yet. That's how you rise, not in flashes of hype, but in rituals of repetition. Your mind becomes unstoppable, not in grand declarations, but in the mundane mastery of doing the work. Again and again and again. With your eyes locked on who you're becoming. This is why the elite separate from the average. Not because of talent, but because of training. Because talent can spark, but training sustains. Training builds character under pressure. Training sharpens decision-making in chaos. Training locks your eyes forward when the world is begging you to look back. So don't just be motivated. Be mentally prepared. Don't just chase goals. Forge identity. Because once you become the kind of person who no longer negotiates with weakness, the world begins to move out of your way. Not because it's easy, but because you no longer need it to be. You've stopped hoping for easy. You've started building strong. And the mind that is built strong becomes the foundation for an extraordinary life. It becomes the weapon that never jams, the shield that never cracks, the compass that never lies. And in the end, when the noise fades and the lights go out and the crowd disappears, it will be your mind that either betrays you or becomes your final battle cry. Make it your weapon. Make it your weapon. Not for war, but for awakening. Because you are not here to sleepwalk through life. You are not here to live in reaction. You are here to build, to create, to command your experience from the inside out. You are not some powerless passenger strapped to the back seat of life's chaos. You are the driver. You are the architect. You hold the pen that writes your future. And the ink is made of thoughts, of decisions, of repetition, of vision. Because thought, when deliberately directed, becomes belief. And belief, when intensely held, becomes identity. And identity, when aligned with action, becomes destiny. This is not theory. This is law. What you repeatedly say to yourself becomes your truth. What you visualize over and over becomes your default focus. And what you obsessively pursue becomes your reality. But most people never get there. Why? Because their mind is ruled by fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of disappointment. But here's the truth that no one says loud enough. Fear only survives when it goes unchallenged. Fear is not fact. Fear is a whisper, a ghost dressed in logic. It borrows the voice of reason, but it is a liar. And once you stare it down, it loses power. That's what the greats understood. Abraham Lincoln battled crushing depression, but he led with unshakable resolve, because he refused to let his internal storms keep him from his external mission. Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times, and kept going, not because he was lucky, but because he trained his mind to see every failure as progress. He said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." You see, the difference between success and mediocrity is not intelligence. It is not opportunity. It is the mental relationship you have with adversity. The average mind fears resistance. The unstoppable mind seeks it out. Because resistance is where identity is forged. Discomfort is where confidence is earned. And pressure is where diamonds are made. You don't become mentally unstoppable by meditating once. You don't become resilient by reading one quote. You become unstoppable by confronting the parts of yourself you'd rather avoid. The lazy part, the insecure part, the impatient, entitled, victim part. You look it in the eye and you dismantle it, piece by piece, day by day, with discipline, with intention, with ownership. That's the secret no one sells, but every warrior knows. Mastering your mind means taking complete responsibility for what you allow to live inside your head. You stop blaming. You stop excusing. You stop outsourcing your state to other people's moods, to the weather, to your bank account, to your childhood. You declare, "I am the gatekeeper. Nothing gets in unless I allow it." Because your mind is not a dumpster for other people's opinions. It is not a playground for doubt. It is not a canvas for chaos. It is your most valuable real estate. And you better guard it like your future depends on it. Because it does. From the moment you wake up to the moment you close your eyes at night, Your mind is either serving you or sabotaging you. And here's what no one teaches in school. You can train it. You can rewire it through repetition, through focus, through relentless intention. Just like a bodybuilder sculpts their physique, you can sculpt your internal world. But just like muscle, mental mastery comes with resistance. It comes with strain, with sweat, with showing up when you're tired, pushing forward when you're discouraged, saying yes to growth when every part of you wants comfort. And the world won't always understand. They'll call you intense. They'll say you've changed. They'll wonder why you don't think like them anymore. But here's the truth. You're not supposed to. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to break patterns, to disrupt mediocrity, to awaken others through the strength of your example. Because here's what happens when you master your mind. You walk different. You speak with precision. You make decisions faster. You attract people with vision. You create momentum that doesn't fizzle out. You become a force, not a trend, not a phase, a force. And that force doesn't just change your life. It becomes contagious. It becomes a lighthouse for others still lost in fog. Because when one person masters their mind, it raises the standard for everyone around them. Think about it. When you're around someone who's centered, you feel it. When you're around someone who doesn't flinch under pressure, you notice. When someone owns their energy, owns their habits, owns their choices, you pay attention. That is what you are becoming. Not just someone who wins, but someone who pulls others into their power simply by existing. And that starts with this one truth. Your mind is either your prison or your passport. It can chain you to old patterns or it can launch you to new levels. But it won't happen on accident. It won't happen with wishful thinking. It will happen when you finally decide, no more. No more mental clutter. No more excuses. No more waiting. Just deliberate thought, deliberate belief, deliberate action, deliberate becoming. This is the path of the unstoppable. And it begins in the quiet. In the moments when no one is watching. When it's just you and your reflection. You and your decisions. You and your mind. Win there. And you win everywhere. Make it your weapon. Not for war, but for awakening. Because you are not here to sleepwalk through life. You are not here to live in reaction. You are here to build, to create, to command your experience from the inside out. You are not some powerless passenger strapped to the back seat of life's chaos. You are the driver. You are the architect. You hold the pen that writes your future. And the ink is made of thoughts, of decisions, of repetition, of vision. Because thought, when deliberately directed, becomes belief. And belief, when intensely held, becomes identity. And identity, when aligned with action, becomes destiny. This is not theory. This is law. What you repeatedly say to yourself becomes your truth. What you visualize over and over becomes your default focus. And what you obsessively pursue becomes your reality. But most people never get there. Why? Because their mind is ruled by fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of failure. Fear of judgment. Fear of disappointment. But here's the truth, that no one says loud enough. Fear only survives when it goes unchallenged. Fear is not fact. Fear is a whisper, a ghost dressed in logic. It borrows the voice of reason, but it is a liar. And once you stare it down, it loses power. That's what the greats understood. Abraham Lincoln battled crushing depression, but he led with unshakable resolve because he refused to let his internal storms keep him from his external mission. Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times and kept going, not because he was lucky, but because he trained his mind to see every failure as progress. He said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." You see, The difference between success and mediocrity is not intelligence. It is not opportunity. It is the mental relationship you have with adversity. The average mind fears resistance. The unstoppable mind seeks it out. Because resistance is where identity is forged. Discomfort is where confidence is earned. And pressure is where diamonds are made. You don't become mentally unstoppable by meditating once. You don't become resilient by reading one quote. You become unstoppable by confronting the parts of yourself you'd rather avoid. The lazy part, the insecure part, the impatient, entitled victim part. You look it in the eye and you dismantle it, piece by piece, day by day, with discipline, with intention, with ownership. That's the secret no one sells, but every warrior knows. Mastering your mind means taking complete responsibility for what you allow to live inside your head. You stop blaming. You stop excusing. You stop outsourcing your state to other people's moods, to the weather, to your bank account, to your childhood. You declare, I am the gatekeeper. Nothing gets in unless I allow it. Because your mind is not a dumpster for other people's opinions. It is not a playground for doubt. It is not a canvas for chaos. It is your most valuable real estate, and you better guard it like your future depends on it. Because it does. From the moment you wake up to the moment you close your eyes at night, your mind is either serving you or sabotaging you. And here's what no one teaches in school. You can train it. You can rewire it through repetition, through focus, through relentless intention. Just like a bodybuilder sculpts their physique, you can sculpt your internal world. But just like muscle, mental mastery comes with resistance. It comes with strain, with sweat, with showing up when you're tired, pushing forward when you're discouraged, saying yes to growth when every part of you wants comfort. And the world won't always understand. They'll call you intense. They'll say, you've changed. They'll wonder why you don't think like them anymore. But here's the truth. You're not supposed to. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to break patterns, to disrupt mediocrity, to awaken others through the strength of your example. Because here's what happens when you master your mind. You walk different. You speak with precision. You make decisions faster. You attract people with vision. You create momentum that doesn't fizzle out. You become a force, not a trend, not a phase, a force. And that force doesn't just change your life. It becomes contagious. It becomes a lighthouse for others still lost in fog. Because when one person masters their mind, it raises the standard for everyone around them. Think about it. When you're around someone who's centered, you feel it. When you're around someone who doesn't flinch under pressure, you notice. When someone owns their energy, owns their habits, owns their choices, you pay attention. That is what you are becoming. Not just someone who wins, but someone who pulls others into their power simply by existing. And that starts with this one truth. Your mind is either your prison or your passport. It can chain you to old patterns or it can launch you to new levels. But it won't happen on accident. It won't happen with wishful thinking. It will happen. No more. No more mental clutter. No more excuses. No more waiting. Just deliberate thought, deliberate belief, deliberate action, deliberate becoming. This is the path of the unstoppable, and it begins in the quiet, in the moments when no one is watching, when it's just you and your reflection, you and your decisions, you and your mind. Win there, and you win everywhere.